before James Bond was this. A bit of this. And some of that.
Casino Royale is too much for one James Bond. Join the Casino Royale fun movement.
You had the 1954 live film-for-television adaptation of Casino Royale, made as the third episode of the series' climax and largely believed to be lost until discovered by film historians in the 80s. The film, although short in length, clocking in at just under an hour, follows many of the same narrative plot points as the novel, from the assassination attempts on Bond's life to the card game and even the torture scenes. The film's casting is also very interesting. You have Barry Nelson as Bond, long before he was the manager of the Overlook Hotel. You have Peter Lorre bringing a strong sense of star power to production through his portrayal of Le Chiffre. And you have Linda Christian playing Valerie Mathis, whose role becomes a mixture of this and Vesper. With that in mind, let's talk about it. I don't want to make any excuses for the overall presentation of the film, but there are a lot of constraints put onto this that other films didn't have to contend with. For instance, it's all filmed live, so there are certain mishaps that occur throughout the film that wouldn't necessarily happen in a taped production, as you can have as many takes as you like. I also believe the broadcast was cut off in the closing moments, as certain copies just cut to black in the middle of a sequence, and others show the full ending as well as the send-off by the presenter. If taped, some of these sequences could have been cut down to save on time.
Down, please.
The budget was also a mere $1,000, which gives some insight into the usage of certain props as well as the quality of some effects. What can't really be defended, however, are some of the decisions that were made in the script. For instance, British agent James Bond is changed to CIA agent Jimmy Bond, a decision I can only think was made to appeal to their American audience, as to have a British protagonist would not have been as relatable, especially during the height of the Cold War. This aspect is only one of many scripting issues that all revolve around the characterization and dialogue. Jimmy is full of quips and one-liners, which is done to quickly present the charm of his character, as you've only got an hour to develop these characters. But by focusing on the surface level humour of this character, you lose any subtext surrounding him. It makes him plain and unrelatable. Throughout his relationship with Mathis, he appears cold towards her, but in the final act of the programme, he quickly shifts to being loving and affectionate, with no build. Jimmy Bond appears to be a shallow man, devoid of any inner turmoil that comes from his profession. The best part of this programme is easily Peter Lorre's performance. When Le Chiffre is first introduced and I saw it was Lorre playing him, I thought that he would probably just walk through his lines, as this is not a position with the same gravitas as some of the other roles he has portrayed. But thankfully, I couldn't have been more wrong. What he was able to bring to the role was the emotion that was sorely lacking from the rest of the production. He was menacing when he needed to be, but also able to sell the desperation of his situation. He had to win the card game against Bond in order to win back the money he owed to the communist agencies, and with each move he made, he sold that urgency. You, as a viewer, were more invested in his struggle than any other character due to his performance. He truly was a Bond villain that could stand against any of his future counterparts. My take on the story of Casino Royale was the exploration of these characters trying to escape the situations that both themselves and their country have placed them in, but ultimately failing to do so. With James, he tries to turn his back on the espionage lifestyle by settling down with Vesper, but is dragged back in after she is revealed to be a double agent. With Vesper herself, she is trapped between her duty and the love she has for James, which ultimately leads to her suicide. This can also be seen with Le Chiffre, as he is literally trying to escape from his past by paying off his former employers, where his desperation to do so leads to his death as well. It is an interesting discussion about duty and service to one's country, a theme very close to James Bond as an entity. Above all the violence and sex, James Bond is a three-dimensional character. You can see this clearly in the book as well as the 2006 adaptation. In this adaptation, however, he is quite frankly boring. It is interesting to note that the studio commissioned to adapt more of Fleming's work, which could have developed on the surface level characterization and provided a conclusion to James and Valerie's story, but these were never finalised and the intellectual property was sold to MGM, thus beginning the Bond we know today. The film although not best technically and artistically, is a very interesting viewing. It works as a sort of litmus test that producers must have worked against when crafting the do's and don'ts of Bond. Definitely worthwhile checking out for any Bond fans, or even fans of television from that time, as there are clear similarities between, say this, and the Hitchcock Hour.
Good evening, knights and ladies. I believe we have at last devised the perfect television show.
At less than an hour in length, and free to watch on YouTube, you can't go wrong.
Why don't you pull that trick? Thank you, Mr. Bond.